So I'm gonna apologize in advance if this is a little weird. I'm not used to doing videos of myself, so there's no like clean makeup, and I didn't trim up too nice. But my cat Cleo, she's a good girl. She's a member of my streams. I'm also recording on multiple spots, so my Logitech webcam, my cell phone, my and also I'm doing dishes and laundry in the background, so I apologize if you can hear that. If any of this doesn't get used, don't worry about it. So I recorded these a little while ago, say like a week to 2 weeks ago, and I've just been a little bit lazy to properly edit and record this whole thing together. Since then, Square has put out a couple of events with the updating trailers and stuff like that, and they've already pre-confirmed some of my things, as well as they put out the demo. Hopefully this gets out before the part 2 of the demo goes up, but there are some subtle confirmations, but I'm not going to change any of the content of this. If you're curious about any updates that I may have had to my guesses or theories, you'll probably just have to check out the VODs. But yeah, it is what it is. Okay, enjoy. My name is Paul. You can call me Prism, you can call me Zet, you can call me Prism Zet, you can call me Paul. Anything works. And if you're curious, this is Cleo. She's a good cat. She's a good member on my streams. She's often here, and she's always around to help me out when I'm up too late. Probably see her a lot in this video too as she pops up. Alright, let's get into it. Every theory about FF7 Rebirth is wrong. Well, not wrong completely, at least, but I do have some thoughts about why I believe some things will be a bit different than people are expecting. I'll go through exactly what I think is going on, and I'll even give some hard predictions you can call me out on when Rebirth comes out. Do you understand multiverse theory, parallel worlds theory, string theory? If you're familiar with the MCU, or theories about FF7 timelines and stuff, or other timeline-related media, you probably got a rough idea of how it works. I don't think they're going to get too into the metaphysics of it in this game. It'll probably be pretty dumbed down and pretty standard. I think the basics would cover something like slightly altered worlds where things are different because of changes made earlier in time, or worlds where opposite choices are made, and worlds where changes made in one resonate through others through time and space. I'm generalizing a little bit, but I disagree with the general theories of FF7 going around right now. I'll explain what I think, why I think, and how likely I think changes are going to go one way or the other in some predictions. I believe the FF7 world is going through a time loop, and I'll explain why I think this is significant to the overall story. I've maintained these beliefs since my first playthrough of FF7 on stream, seeing Maximilian Dude's Twitter and video posts, and hundreds of other people theorizing about it. I made some of my own Twitter posts, my own sidetracked hour-long chats on stream, while I've replayed FF7 Original, Remake, Integrate, and Ever Crisis, where I really get into gagging a little bit there. But I'll try to get all my thoughts together here and make it nice and compact and a little easier to understand. Before I get into exactly what I think the major difference is between my theory and others, let me talk a little bit about the world of FF7 and why certain things lead me to believe what I believe. The most obvious thing in Remake that's very different compared to the original is the Whispers of Fate. The Kingdom Hearts ghosts you see flying around and stopping one thing or another from happening, or ensuring that other things do happen. There's precious little info given to us in FF7 Remake about the Whispers and how they relate to the world, but the long and the short of it is that they manage fate. They make things happen in a certain way, and they predetermine the outcomes. We know this because they try to align things to happen the way things originally happened in FF7 Original. Try to make sure Aerith and Cloud bump into each other after the reactor bombing, make sure Jessie gets injured so she can't take Cloud's slot on the next reactor bomb mission. They save Aerith from falling too early in the church, and they make sure Cloud and Aerith take a certain route throughout the church and the slums, etc., etc., etc. They take actions to make sure fairly significant events that shape the story of FF7 actually happen and stay on track with their emotional beats and lore reveals. For example, so Cloud and Co. don't learn too early about Deep Ground and the Shinra creates monsters from people part too early. There are a few things we can infer and observe from their actions and choices as well. They work to maintain a specific version of events. They can be hurt or destroyed, but they are legion essentially, so losing a few doesn't matter. I talk on one of my streams about how convenient it is that the concept of fate is something that Cloud can stab with a sword. Otherwise, this whole problem becomes much more difficult to deal with. They don't care about any particular person specifically unless there is a significant reason for their life, death, or injury to be avoided or ensured. Sephiroth and Aerith can see them directly from the start of the game, although in Aerith's case, we don't know if they made contact with her off-screen, or if she was able to see them since the start of the loop, or if this was even her first direct interaction. For this next part, in the original FF7 loop, the heroes make the comparison and the direct insinuation that the planet is still a child. It's still growing, struggling to survive, all alone in space. The heroes make the active choice to do what's best for the planet's future by removing Sephiroth and Jenova from tainting and consuming it. There's a very clear theme of reincarnation, a life cycle that builds and grows, that repeats and feeds off the death, life, and proliferation of the people and ecosystem on the planet. Weapons are the planet's immune system's final defense. They get released when the planet needs to stop wasting energy, maintain and or eliminate people, animals, and threats to recover energy and defeat dangerous invaders or recover from grievous wounds. So my thoughts on the Whispers and how they fit into that system. The Whispers are the planet's decision makers, the part of your body that knows instinctively what to do with food or when you see an attractive person. It takes the appropriate measures to act on those needs and wants. They are the instincts of the planet, the instructions passed on by the previous generation. They guide the people in the overall growth of the planet to make sure that it can move on healthily and repeat its cycle of proliferation again. The ancients fit into this system as well, and I think they have a very clear duty to the planet. I'm going to interject one of my personal theories here. The way I see them in the FF7 Timeloop world are as people inherited from the previous loop. The same way you might think of a mother as passed on antibodies and immunities passed down to a child through their milk. They are helpful to the planet. They nurture and protect it from sickness for a time after its birth, but eventually they pass on once it's able to produce its own successfully, in this case, the people in the ecosystem. They aren't meant to last forever, and they eventually evolve into a new form. For example, the current humans in the FF7 original timeline. The humans in this example settle, they grow, and they proliferate, simultaneously increasing the lifestream and spreading across the planet. They learn, experiment, and evolve. Prior to the discovery of Mako energy, they help the planet's lifestream grow stronger as they consume and increase the energy before donating back to it when they die. This is the important part of their cycle. Jenova, and by extension Sephiroth, and his derivative clone brothers are what you would call a parasite. They're predator of the planets. They come from somewhere else, they consume the energy of the planet, they defeat all the inhabitants, and move on when it's a husk. Initially, this is achieved by striking the planet as a meteor and directly fighting and absorbing or reproducing by infecting the inhabitants and changing them into beings separate from the planet's lifestream ecosystem. I believe because of the ancients' inability to actually defeat and destroy Jenova, only sealing her due to said meteor strike, probably reducing their numbers by quite a bit. Then the eventual discovery by humans 2,000 years later, finding and meddling with her DNA, essentially changed her from a parasite into a much more insidious cancer that the planet can no longer deal with on its own. Not being a direct part of the planet's ecosystem renders them essentially immune to the Whispers and the other elements of the planet's defenses, with the exception of heroes making the choice to become stronger and to actually defeat them head on. So what does the planet do? It manipulates the events and heroes and humans on the planet to remove the parasite for good. It doesn't care about the individual humans on it the same way that we don't care about individual blood cells that clot to heal a wound. Theo, go back up. So good when she stays in her box and just chills beside me while I stream or do work. Oh. This is why I think FF7 ends on such a bittersweet note. All the events leading up to Meteor, wholly activating too late, and the planet only stepping in at the last second to spend lifestream energy to stop fatal damage from Meteor. Conveniently letting many people die in the Mateo Fall incident, and the ensuing decades of strife fighting the Sephiroth clones and Jenova remnants caused tons of death. The perfect way for the planet to rebuild from its 2,000 years, or whatever, that it spent recovering from Jenova's initial wound. Eventually, this culminates in Sephiroth and Jenova's influence being erased from the lifestream as far as we know. We know from the flash forward 500 years in the future image that we see that the planet is largely recovered. Red 13 and his progeny have grown and are free to roam the planet. Humanity is almost completely invisible in its current impact on the planet. only noticed by the giggle you can hear at the end of the credits, either via extinction or on a much more evolved level, acting as the new ancients of the planet, living in harmony with it, prepping for a new loop. That's my preferred take on the ending, although I know the directors have said themselves they prefer the complete extinction of humanity at that point, which may mean that those giggles were the pups of Red 13 giggling. I apologize for how much info that is, but it's how I see the planet in FF7, and I feel like it's necessary for understanding why I think things are happening the way they are in the current loop. This covers the planet portion of my theory, and the conclusion I want to make from that is thus. The planet manipulated events and people during the OG loop, either subtly or overtly, in different ways to ensure that things end up on this path, because this path is the best for the planet. It recovers, the parasite is removed, and it exists long enough to mature and proliferate, thus ending up in a new loop. Eventually leading to the loop and reincarnation cycle that is central to the world, either via Big Bang, Big Crunch style eventual death and rebirth, or some more integral magic that affects the universe, like in Final Fantasy 1 and the Chaos Time Loop to stop Chaos from winning eventually. I have two big theories about this reincarnation cycle and why it may not be feasible to maintain it forever. Clearly in Remake and Rebirth, we've already taken a large deviation by removing the Whispers, the Arbiters of Fate, and the will of the planet, etc. Theory number 1. Sephiroth and Jenova's influence is not cleanly removed in the original loop, and the reincarnation cycle for the planet is thus building up a toxin of Sephiroth and Jenova cells and tainted spirits, handing down tainted life stream to the new version of the planet. This leads to his more bold actions and clearly increased power and influence in Remake as he loses more and more of his humanity. This feels hinted at by the actions of Deep Ground from Dirge of Cerberus, as even though the Geostigma was cleansed, they can still detect and call people tainted. And obviously Weiss and the other Deep Ground soldiers are still clearly Jenova experiments, and showing her influence still exists. It's hinted at as well in the Lifestream Black POV of Sephiroth's interactions in the Lifestream, that to continue on surviving, he needs to give up what made him human, and that Cloud's memories and emotions are what give him form primarily now. This theory to me implies that the new loop of Remake and why it goes the way it does is due to Sephiroth's intent to take full control of the planet now that he's gained enough power from accumulated cycles being tainted. This forces Cloud and the others to become exposed to the Whispers, eventually fighting against them, defeating them, and thus making the possibility of Sephiroth winning in the end much more likely, without the influence of the planet or the Whispers interfering. One of the major reasons for his eventual defeat in the original loop is that Aerith dies, allowing her to act from within the life stream for the good of Cloud and the planet. Theory number 2. This is my personal pet theory, and I like it the most because there are a lot of people that got a really raw deal in the initial loop of the world. Zack, Aerith, Jesse, Biggs, Wedge, people of Sector 7, GONGAHGUH, and all the Geostigma affected, and the people wiped out via meteor and weapon attacks, deep ground victims, and all the chaos caused because of the mass destruction. They got a shit deal. Oh, you quickly, yo. Gonna so a little Kilio. Kyo. Kyo. What you doing? You snoozy? That little side distraction here. My theory is that this is the first loop Aerith personally has retained memories from the previous ones. Similar to Sephiroth, for some reason or another, she can see the Whispers manipulating her when she normally wouldn't.
You are too weak to save anyone. Not even yourself.
Maybe Sephiroth induces the contact from them to get her to see them, and as soon as she touches Cloud, her memories are unlocked. She knows what's happening and who everyone is. She lets it slip several times in Remake that she knows a lot more than she lets on. Personal details, events, and character traits that she shouldn't know of for a long time, cutting Cloud off and telling Reno that he's her bodyguard and a soldier before he's even had time to think about offering to do it, like in the original loop.
And who are you?
He's my bodyguard. And a soldier. Pretty cool, huh?
Huh? A soldier? Soldier. Well, what do you know? You've got the eyes at least.
You don't mind, do you? Bodyguard work's not too different from merc stuff, right? I guessed. From the sword. Just do this for me, okay?
She's also subtly giving these memories to others, intentionally or not. Cloud, Marlene, and Red have all been given the previous loop's memories, or portions of them. I believe Cloud's was accidental when they touched, and his brain is currently kind of a scrambled egg, and he hasn't had time to be sorted out properly. But both Marlene and Red were intentional to avoid conflict at the time and to get them to cooperate with her more easily.
What? You want to go?
Stop. This child's a friend.
Cloud has flashbacks several times throughout Remake that are to stuff he shouldn't know yet, like letting Aerith go into the water and seeing a holy sink to the bottom of the lake in the City of the Ancients.
Forget things everyone else remembers just fine. And know things I've got no right knowing.
Cloud.
There are minor spoilers in the Rebirth trailer as well, like Zack knowing and understanding that he should have died in the previous loop, and feeling every bullet still as well.
I'm feeling every single bullet.
I believe she doesn't explain to Cloud these parts because she understands what kind of state of mind he's in at this point in time, and that doing more explanation would just add to his confusion. So she doesn't explain things until it's completely necessary to understand what the Whispers are and why they do things, like when they're trapped in the Shitter building with Red and everybody else. And probably further so once they get to Calm, and they would normally do the recap. This is a similar reason as to why she doesn't tell Tifa or Barrett yet about everything. It may cause the resolve and the reason to fight to change before they have a bit more room to breathe and fully understand everything. She knows Red and Marlene are either mature enough to not mess with the flow of the story yet, or won't be in a position to influence things with foreknowledge accidentally, because Marlene is essentially gone after her rescue from the game pretty much till the end of the original loop. I suspect once Cloud tells the party about his past and Calm, we're going to get a much different reaction from Aerith, possibly including the Zack reveal and instant correction of Cloud's story. The conclusion of this is that the planet or universe is forcing a time loop either by its nature and life cycle ending this way normally, or as a way to ensure a certain ending that best suits the planet. I prefer this interpretation, and I feel like it does this as a way to ensure that it survives the infection of Jenova and Sephiroth, and with the mass death of all the humans from it, it gains enough energy to heal, leading to the heavily forested future with limited or no humanity where Red 13 exists to guard the planet. The conclusion of FF7 Remake and defeating the Whispers is that humanity and the heroes can't be controlled by fate any longer, and that they deserve a chance to make their own ending regardless of the planet's intention, either by fear or a necessity for a certain ending. The real cause and effect of this is shown in Remake through a couple of subtle ways, and I think this is the part where many theorists misunderstood the ending as signs of a parallel world or multiple timelines that eventually coalesce at one point. I believe it's still one timeline, and that the universe or the planet itself goes through a time loop similar to Final Fantasy I and its time paradox trap involving chaos. Think of the timeline of Final Fantasy VII and the universe as it's in a long string, and the choices and events that happen nudge that string up or down or curve, with the goal of the planet being that it gets to end up in a position where it's stable enough to restart or reincarnate itself and live on to continue its looping again. By defeating fate, the heroes have pulled the string tight. They've removed any significant decisions or events that may have severely impacted the fate of the planet that were manipulated by the Whispers. Good or bad, people who died now no longer may have died. People who lived may no longer be alive. The events that the Whispers may have had influence on in the past and future may now have significant changes to it. Things that would have been guaranteed are no longer a sure thing. Prime example, Zack is alive. Sub-examples include things like Jesse, Biggs, and Wedge are alive again. I have better, clearer evidence for the Avalanche trio, so we'll start there. They 100% died in the original timeline, and in one of the novels after the original game, they were denied the ability to reincarnate into the lifestream cycle instead, and were forced to stay in a purgatory state due to the people they killed while committing eco-terrorism. A lot of this is due to their personal feelings of guilt and shame, but someone like Zack Fair although clearly a heroic and well-meaning person, killed oodles of people for Shinra as one of their personal, private super soldier lapdogs. Yet he was allowed to integrate into the reincarnation cycle and move on to the heaven-like side of the life stream to enjoy time with Aerith and his friends. In Remake, Cloud and Tifa are held back from reaching Biggs and Jessie in time to possibly heal them after they are penned in and manipulated to be fatally injured by the Whispers. Cloud and Tifa clearly find them in a state where they cannot be saved, and they were held off long enough to not have enough time to help them. Wedge managed to not die immediately, but later on he's yeeted out of the Shinra building by the Whispers, with a fade to black implying he was killed in the fall. I believe with the string being pulled tight and the choices that the Whispers impacted, like Biggs, Wessie, Biggs, Wessie, and Jess. Biggs, Wessie, and Jedge. God damn it. Okay. I believe with the string being pulled tight, the events that the Whispers impacted, like Biggs, Wedge, and Jessie being forced to die, were undone. And being left in an unaltered state, somebody finds at least Jessie and Biggs to get rescued. Or their injuries were much less fatal, and they were able to get rescued after the plate collapse later on. This is shown by the ending where Biggs is recovering, and Jessie's headband and gloves are on the desk. It's also spoiled a little bit by the Rebirth trailer if you see Biggs, and maybe Jessie if you look really closely at the Golden Saucer section. Similarly for Zack, we know that the power of the Whispers being removed from fateful events extends at least a few weeks backwards in time, as without their influence, Zack is no longer forced to die in the waves of the Shinra assault. We don't know how far back it extends to, or how vast the reach was. Rebirth will have to show us the full extent of the changes. Alright, this is where my theorizing towards events in Rebirth and beyond starts. I'll try to break things down into a couple more general overarching statements first, and then I'll try to go through a rough timeline of the game and list out my predictions one by one as to what I think will happen. Can't wait to be proven either right or wrong, as long as they write it better than I could have. That's all I want, to be happy with it. Aerith will not die in Rebirth or the sequel. I'm just going to call it Reunion from now on. It's a good enough name, and I have some predictions regarding that I'll try to get to as well. I feel 100% confident in this. In the original, after I recently played it, there's a very clear trend of Aerith's personality changing, and her actions become very driven and very purposeful. It's very clear she's accepted it and that understands it's for the best, but I believe at that point she's being manipulated and influenced by the Whispers and etc. that are already in the life stream at this point. This happens sometime after they leave Midgar, but we know that the planet is in pain, it's not fully healed, and that the life stream is contaminated by Jenova and Sephiroth, causing it to be very chaotic and impossible to understand correctly. I believe the Whispers influence her to leave the group, attempt to head to the City of Ancients alone, pray for Holy, and it forces her to be in a position to die via Sephiroth's hands. Despite her clearly having a lot left that she wants to do with Cloud and the High Wind and her friends and her mother and everything. She's only like 23 or 24 at the time and was suddenly burdened with the fate of the world after she finally escapes her cage of Midgar. In addition to this being the single biggest change that they could enact to differentiate it from the original game, I feel like thematically it makes a lot of clear sense too. She deserves a life. She deserves to love. She deserves to have a real second chance to grow up outside of captivity by Shinra. And however she chooses to live after that, and whatever she chooses to do, is up in the air for now. I feel like she'll take a lot of advantage of the freedom to be much more romantic with Cloud, and probably more directly confrontational with Sephiroth at the very least. Cloud or Tifa will die instead of Aerith. I'm pretty sure this is going to happen. I'm 95% confident this is the case. Barrett already got a fake out death. Kate sent him this toy, and the Temple of the Ancients happens. He's going to get his death there anyways. Red 13 isn't pivotal enough to the story yet to die there. Neither is Vincent, Sid, or Yuffie. And she still has something to encounter later on in Reunion. Namely Sonon, because theories about him. That basically leaves Tifa and Cloud on the chopping block. I think that even though the characters will roughly know the outline of the original game at this point, they're still going to try to beat Sephiroth in a similar way, using Holy and kicking the shit out of him in person. Thus, Sephiroth will try to kill Aerith while she's activating Holy, but either Cloud will stop him and die in the process, or Tifa will save Cloud from dying in the process and cause her to die. I don't think they will die like for real, but it may be that they get knocked into the life stream or kidnapped or incapacitated in a really clear way that leaves them unavailable to the team for a long period of time. And that leads directly into my next prediction. Zack will replace Cloud at some point in this game or from the start of Reunion forwards, a la Chrono Trigger, like when Chrono gets blown away by Lavos and you get Magus in your team. Then eventually you come back and replace Chrono in time with Doll and then take the real Chrono back, and then you're good to go again for the rest of the game. I'm 95 or 90% confident in this. Just as Cloud takes up the Buster Sword from Zack and Midgard carries on for him, Zack's gonna take the Buster Sword from Cloud again and lead the party in his place for a time. Because of the way I think the time loop works, I think they currently both have the same sword still. Not two separate swords, because it's not two separate timelines. Sonon will return either late in Rebirth or in Reunion, and probably as an enemy. I'm 85% confident this is the case. He didn't turn into Lifestream dust, and he was taken away by Nero and Deep Ground. The same way that they took Genesis after Crisis Core into Deep Ground, but we never saw him in Dirge of Cerberus 2 because it never came out. But I feel like he's going to come back and possibly manipulated by Deep Ground. Okay, speaking of Dirge of Cerberus, this ties directly into my thoughts on Trilogy Ender Reunion. 75% confident in this. I think Rebirth is going to follow the events of the original game pretty closely, but leave us on a wildly different introduction that would be Disc 3 of the original. I believe that with Fate out of the way, we're going to encounter a much changed Sephiroth preparing to receive the party, and I believe that the early introduction to Deep Ground, Zack, and Genesis, and the contents of Ever Crisis are pointing us to a much bigger conclusion than we got previously. I'm predicting that we're going to have maybe Sephiroth, Jenova, Genesis, Weiss, Nero, Rosso, Azul, Hojo, Sonon, etc. all teaming up to provide a very absurd wall for the heroes to overcome and end the whole saga like in a very interesting and large way. I feel like kind of more I hope, but we'll be getting sub-team that is planning to take off on Sephiroth or chase the main party down. I'm 60% confident this is the case. And I feel like we'll either get to play as or witness a bunch of the events of the sub-team throughout Rebirth. They'll be led by Zack with Biggs. And I have some thoughts on who they can include in it, but I wouldn't be shocked to see Glenn, Roche, Wedge, Jesse, Cisne, Leslie, Kyrie, Johnny, or other of the Turks from Before Crisis or First Soldier members helping them out. I feel like their role in the story is going to be a bit more of a secret compared to Cloud. They're going to operate in the shadows a little bit, whereas Cloud and Co are fighting Sephiroth and Shinra openly. The other sub-party is probably going to be trying to do stuff in the side and in the background. I feel like they'll be chasing the party down and piecing things together until they catch up at the City of the Ancients. We know that the Turks from Before Crisis survived up to Mateo Fall to help people evacuate and get out of the city and help with the recovery effort of it. And they even fought Jade Weapon, which wasn't in the original trilogy, but from Before Crisis. But their game is essentially erased into history because it was on like a specific model of phone and it was only in Japanese, and it was a live Japanese game that you couldn't play clearly in a lot of places. So it'd be nice to get a continuation of their story here and get that boss model back in a really cool way. Next one is Glenn is the hooded man that you see in the Rebirth trailers with a beard. I'm 75% confident in this. I think it's hard to tell with the Ever Crisis story not being complete yet, but if I believe something happened to Glenn and young Sephiroth or baby Sephiroth, the intro to Ever Crisis shows Glenn hunting down Sephiroth in a black cloak, very similar with the hood up, and you can see his beard a little bit to the guy in the trailers. And he's saying, "It's been a while," during the Crisis Core time when Genesis went AWOL. Sephiroth's trying to call him on his phone, and Glenn attacks him with his axe at that point. But he wakes up on a helicopter. And with Matt and Lucia, my rough prediction is that the Soldier Class 0 members were possibly executed or harvested when they implemented the soldier program in full force, with Sephiroth being the first successful soldier of the new type, so they scrapped all the old ones and made use of them. But Glenn somehow escaped due to Sephiroth having kind of affection for him that you show off in Ever Crisis. My prediction is more specifically that Glenn's been in hiding in exile, and when he heard Sephiroth was since he heard Sephiroth was dead, but now he's trying to hunt Sephiroth down now that he is rumored to be alive again for revenge. If you look at the end of Ever Crisis, not the end of it, I guess, but like the first soldier side of the story there, at a certain point, Glenn and Sephiroth don't get along very well, but Glenn eventually realizes that Sephiroth is still a kid and he doesn't really deserve to be called a cyborg, and he doesn't know how to be friendly with people. But at a certain point, he gives Sephiroth a hug, and Sephiroth's almost like crying, and then he has a lot more emotion still at that point. So I feel like Glenn is angry at the soulless monster Sephiroth's become. Conflict with Avalanche. I'm only 50% confident in this, but I think Avalanche is going to be antagonistic to either the Cloud Party or the Zack side party. Both Yuffie and Zack and the Turks have had fairly large conflicts with the other group of Avalanche that Barrett split off from. Maybe the side members we meet in Yuffie's story group up to take on Shinra or the main parties for one reason or another, as they took on Shinra in Before Crisis with the Ravens, the super soldier Avalanche knockoffs. It would be neat to get the Zirconade, I don't know how to say that properly, Zirconide, or Jade Weapon story from this. And they were clearly set up in Remake and not explored too deeply, like Avalanche as a whole, I'd say. So maybe we'll be getting some story related and explanation to them, but unsure of how it's going to be, so that's why I give it a 50%. Benora and the related people, including Jillian and Jill's mom, and Hollander and Jill's dad, and the whole Genesis related stuff, I think will be more visible and included in Rebirth forwards, possibly not even destroyed anymore. And I'm only 25% confident in this. I'm much more confident, like 50% or so, that this area and the village will play a larger part in the story. Hojo even mentions G-type soldier remnants as being the options to breed with Aerith and for enhanced Cetra offspring. Not that confident in the effects of the Whispers being killed, bringing back a lot of story significant people that far back. But since we haven't been shown how far or how much they affect the overall story, I feel like Rebirth and Reunion will be laying the full story of Soldier and Jenova's influence out. One kind of cohesive story so that we can actually gather and deal with the complete host or the complete parasitic or cancerous entities created by Jenova and her alien waifu genes, so they can all be cleaned up and destroyed. That's partially why I think the Benora side people are going to come back, or the village just as a whole. Lucretia Crescent, similar to the Benora experiments and scientists, I feel like she's going to play a much larger part of the lore in Rebirth, and I'm pretty 50% confident I'd say so, because Vincent is confirmed to be an essential part of the game now, and his involvement in Deep Ground, Omega, and Chaos conflict will lead him and Lucretia needing to come to a much more, how do you say, like, he needs closure. He needs proper closure. And I think she needs some closure as well on the result of Sephiroth, since she's his physical mom, not even though it's not his genetic mother, I'd say. We're gonna get something pretty sad with her, I'm pretty sure. Maybe she'll be a villain even at this point, but we'll see. The Before Crisis Turks. I'm 30% confident in this. The Before Crisis Turks, like the members, including Sisney, and a member of, are going to be much more sympathetic to the heroes like Cloud and Zack.
Passing through. You.
And they're willing to maybe help and maybe even outright fight against Shinra or Avalanche or Sephiroth. Their whole story in Before Crisis, like, I've read enough synopsis about it, so I can't obviously play it, but they fight against Avalanche, and Avalanche is trying to create the ultimate summon with Zirconade to fuck up Shinra and save the planet, rule the planet kind of thing. They have an evil scientist in the lead there. But at a certain point, they go kind of rogue, and they're against Shinra, or rather disobedient to Shinra. And that's where Sane becomes the leader of the Turks, and a lot of powerful fighters and members of the Turks are scattered around the world and hidden in various places. Like, they're in Junon and Costa del Sol and the snowboarding village and all over the place. And they come back together later in the Before Crisis story, after they beat Zirconade and Avalanche, because Jade Weapon is hunting them down. Jade Weapon was apparently activated to hunt down Zirconade, as it was deemed a threat to the planet, but then the Turks defeated Zirconade, so the Jade Weapon started targeting the Turks. They had to come back together to fight Jade Weapon and stop it from causing fucking havoc around the world. And then they went back into hiding because they're still kind of rogue from Shinra. At which point, they do come back together later during the Teofall and helping the rest of the Turks organize rescue and evacuation of the people in Midgar. So they're around. I would love to see them come back, especially because I love Cisne. She's one of my favorites. And there's a lot of cool designs and characters in those Turks groups, including like Legend, or a lot of them are just named stupid things like Tonfa or Sword or Shuriken and stuff like that. But either way, it'd be fucking cool to get them back, and they'd be either great enemies or great like nemesis ally type people. So it'd be fun to see them. Zangan, Tifa's teacher, will be definitely around in Rebirth. 50% confident. So not definitely, but Zangan is kind of mysteriously absent in 7 original and the following media. You get Tifa's ultimate limit break from a memento left by him in Nibelheim, and although the side content like the novels and Ever Crisis, or sorry, I should say through the side content and novels and Ever Crisis, we know that he helped Tifa escape, get treatment from her Sephiroth wound, which was apparently destroyed her whole fucking ribcage. And her physical recovery was with some of his other students, which is where Tifa met Marl. She was there recovering from an injury as well. And then they split off when Marl finished her surgery or whatever, and then eventually they met back up in Midgar, and then that's how Tifa started rooming in her apartment there. But there's mentions of his other apprentices, and there was also supposed to be planned content for him in Nibelheim that was cut from the original. So I suspect we'll probably see him maybe around the Golden Saucer area, or through Nibelheim again. Since he has implied ties to Avalanche as well for teaching some of their members to fight. That could be another important aspect of what could happen with him in Rebirth and Reunion. So. Hey there. So this is just one more little bonus prediction. I think that Rude from the Turks is going to be one of Zangan's disciples, and he clearly has a crush on Tifa throughout the game. There's a couple points where all the Turks talk about what girls they like throughout the different parties and stuff. I think Rude is going to have a more direct connection to Tifa through Zangan, and he'll either be one of his disciples or the person who helped her recover from her initial injury with Sephiroth.
Stairs.
Two birds with one shitload of bullets. Hey! Damn it! You want to explain yourself, partner?
Hand slip.
This is shown through examples when he chooses not to attack her during various boss fights. He just stares, doesn't do an action, and goes ... and he'll refuse to attack Tifa in boss fights with her there. But yeah, we'll see what they show us in Rebirth. This is probably one of my contradictory changes, I think. I think the stamp change is purely going to be to show that things are different. I don't think it's going to imply that there's a separate timeline or anything like that. I'm 50% confident in it. I think it'll purely just to show that things are different now. Maybe Stamp's design when they were choosing to design him as like a little terrier or beagle or whatever he's supposed to be, instead of choosing the beagle one, the Whispers just forced it to get changed to this one. So now it's this other one that they didn't choose last time. And it would be really funny to me if somehow Stamp's design was significant to the story. Like, we'll find out that Beagle Stamp was the reason that somebody joined Shinra and Kunzel doesn't exist in this new version or something like that. But yeah, that's just me being a little bit, like, I'd say, contrary to the other timeline theories. I think Yuffie's going to have some more romantic inclinations to Cloud, and I'm 40% confident in it. 15% confident in what I'm going to say after this, which is there's tiny amounts of hints in the intermission story and the OG, the original, and the Rebirth trailer. And the reason I think this is because I would love there to be an open-ended decision that affects the general story. So maybe the person you go on the date with is the one that falls into the live stream with Cloud, or is the one that dies. It would be really interesting how open they leave the story to us, and like if it's all set in stone that one of these people is going to be the one to die or not. But I would love for an expansion of the like romance / date / story implications kind of thing. Like, you get to the point before they're all prepping to go to the North Cave for the final time, and instead of spending the night with Tifa and possibly having sex or not, based on how you want to read the initial thing, it'd be really funny to me if it's Barrett and Cloud hanging out by the rocks, napping on each other's shoulders. Or Zack and Cloud, or fucking anybody, Johnny and Cloud. Something like goofball-y like that would be very entertaining for me as a very like interesting change. Okay, now for some more specific callouts regarding the original timeline and changes that we might not see. I think some of these will be pretty likely, and some of them will have absolutely no chance, but I'd like them anyways. I'll try to run through my specific predictions for new events that interject the displaced characters like Zack and Biggs, because they obviously didn't exist in the original timeline at this point, but they will now. So operating under that, this is a time loop, so instead of a split thing, they just got forced back into the story, and things are confusing because of that. So Zack's portion of the story is going to roughly go as follows. This is my guess for the new events and how they overlap. This will roughly start when Cloud would have initially reached the city, and will continue until Cloud and Co. would normally have left the city. With the string pulled tight metaphor I used before, keep in mind that things that happen in the OG and the remake will still happen roughly the same, with the consequences of those actions being done or undone being forcibly smushed into the story in the timeline of the active story. So Zack and Cloud approach Midgar. Notice the commotion as people panic and there's general chaos. Many refugee type people I think will be around, causing general unrest. And those refugee people I think are going to be implied that they're people that should have died or shouldn't have died, and they're back for some reason. This allows them to sneak into the city relatively unnoticed by Shinra, as many people that should have been dead are suddenly alive. He thought, you got hit by a train or were shot in the war kind of thing. How did you get back to the city kind of stuff? They just use that confusion to sneak into the city. Zack will defeat some monsters, possibly the Genesis clones or deep ground soldiers that have become active near the city again due to the Whisper's influence being removed. And I think that specifically is going to be the scene where you see Zack put Cloud on the Kyrie's shoulder and he's like, hey, take care of my buddy for a second here, and then he's gonna go fight them. And I think the reason they didn't show us it just being like a generic monster or something like that is I think that it's almost certainly gonna be like Genesis clones or deep ground soldiers that have been woken up early because the Whispers aren't keeping them alive or dead anymore. So Zack and Cloud are gonna hide in the slums. Zack hides Cloud somewhere and attempts to go see Aerith. That's the scene when you get to see him at the church, and he doesn't find her there. He finds a bunch of people that would not normally be there. It's whoa, Cleo, her fucking, you good girl, Cleo is okay. Your bed fell off the window, eh? You sleeping there all awkwardly? Cleo, baby. Oh, you good girl. I'm so sorry. I'll fix your bed for you, I promise. I'll fix it for you after. That was really funny and really sad. I'm so sorry about that. Okay, I don't know if I finished my thing there, but I'll just leave that in. Zack is surprised by the tons of people at the church and is unable to find Aerith. Maybe she went to gather materials for medicine for the new refugees, or this was where, while she was selling flowers up on the plate the first time. He returns to find Cloud, and he's pretty sad and obviously like upset that he can't find the info he needs, and he can't wait for her because he's worried about Shinra finding Cloud in him. Sorry. I fixed Cleo's window bed, and I'm gonna start to try to go through here. Zack tries to connect with some of his friends stealthily, maybe Kunzel or Cisne, or maybe here, which I kind of hate. Looks here at some point. This one, he's bad. And then Cloud disappears and takes the Buster Sword in a daze, and he meets Tifa and follows her. At this point, the original and remakes roughly take place at the same time. The time period for the original game is maybe a week total from the first bombing run to the Midgar escape. It's short enough time that Zack may just miss tracking down Cloud or Aerith properly, and at that point maybe he even re-hooks up with the Turks and Shinra or Avalanche after Rufus becomes president and the Platefall happens while he's looking for them. Then Jesse and Wedge are confirmed to be alive, but they'll go off to do something before Biggs actually awakens. Maybe they're helping Avalanche, or maybe they're trying to lead Shinra away before they find Biggs comatose. I think they're eventually going to end up back at the Golden Saucer helping Avalanche. And once Biggs recovers, Zack and him meet, and they see a massive propaganda campaign thrown up by Shinra, pin the blame from all the chaos on Cloud, Tifa, Barrett, and the Avalanche members, and claims they've killed them all, including doctored video, doctored footage, and posters. You see some of those in Rebirth. I think this will be the case until Biggs is spotted, and they'll put a bounty on him. Zack and Biggs will run away from Midgar, and they'll also run into Roche, who has abandoned his soldier duties at this point, and they'll attempt to chase down Cloud and his party together. I think Yuffie will join in a similar manner to the original, but the party will have some knowledge of kind of what she's about already due to Aerith in them, and I feel like the way they depict it will be something similar to how it is in Ever Crisis, where it includes her chocobo friend that she rode out of Midgar while she was sad about Sonon, and that'll probably lead you to the Chocobo Ranch. It'd be interesting too if she explains the intermission story to them about why she was near Midgar and what she was trying to do. Cloud and party will retell the Nibelheim incident. It's spoiled a little bit in the trailer if they already do that, but I think they will correct Cloud immediately, and Aerith will begin to tell them of her knowledge of the previous loop. In the Rebirth trailer, Tifa and Aerith discuss Cloud not being in Nibelheim 5 years prior. Tifa asks Aerith this because she already knows that she knows more than she's letting on, and this happens in one of the Rebirth trailers already, so that's kind of confirmed. Zack and his party, and by his party I'm assuming Biggs, Wedge, Sisney, Glenn, Roche, Kunzel, etc. Maybe some of those members. I think we'll be a little more clued in to the clearly changed status quo, and we'll begin to follow the main party out of Midgar, possibly hitting locations that the others are going to maybe miss, including Fort Condor, GONGAHGUH, investigating Benora, the Redoran Plateau or Peninsula, or Medeoheim, etc. Those places that are in the canon and are in the other games, but not in the original game. So they're either going to look for clues or maybe some more knowledge that they didn't have in the original. Another random prediction, I think, is going to be that there's going to be a secret date option for some other characters. My bets are on Jesse, Zack, or Sephiroth.
These feelings affect who will join you on a date in a gold saucer. Something I'm sure many of you are excited about. Even allies who weren't available in the original FF7 can now accompany you, provided you play your cards right.
And particularly, I would love Jessie because I have the biggest crush on her. I would love it if you run into her there and you haven't influenced enough of the other members to get romance points or whatever, so you can get Jessie from there. Or maybe there's some events you can do as Zack's party to influence him to show up there in time to hang out with Cloud and he thinks it's a dream. Or maybe if you just get nobody, you get Sephiroth, like Cloud hallucinating him as big fucking goofy leather daddy that he thinks he is in his memories. I have some opinions about the way they show Cloud Sephiroth in his retelling of the Nibelheim incident. That's funny already from the trailer. After the point of the Temple of the Ancients, I think Sephiroth is still going to get the Black Materia, but not because of Cloud directly. I think Aerith won't leave the party in an attempt to defeat Sephiroth on her own either. I think there's going to be a larger clash there with some of the antagonistic forces, possibly causing a situation similar to when Cloud falls into the live stream again with Tifa, except this time he'll fall in with Aerith, and previously she watched over Tifa and Cloud piecing his mind back together in the live stream, and that happened after her demise in the original. But since I don't think she's going to die in this one, I think he's going to become a whole person again, like his whole self, before they get to the City of the Ancients with her help. I think one of the biggest red herrings in the trailer is the image of Aerith praying on the platform in the City of the Ancients. I believe that image is specifically not present in Rebirth. It's her remembering the previous loop and how, despite Cloud being controlled by Sephiroth, where he's like struggling to not strike her down with the Buster Sword, and he does overcome it at the last second and doesn't do it, but it's going to show that he and her are both being manipulated by the Whispers, and they weren't allowed to stop Sephiroth, which is the key to becoming Aerith active in the live stream and thwarting Sephiroth even after her death. The second biggest red herring in the trailer, which I think is a red herring, is the image of Zack, Cloud, Aerith, and Marlene all together at some point, where Marlene tells Zack she knows that when Aerith wakes up, there's a bad man that's going to try to kill her. I think this is going to be placed at a point where Zack and his party find Cloud and Aerith after they get separated from the main crew. I think somehow they're going to get knocked into the life stream. They're going to get separated from the party. They're going to be in the life stream piecing Cloud's mind back together, and Zack will discover them with his party. And Marlene and Elmira at this point of the game have escaped Midgard with the help of Reeve. I think they're going to be like hiding away somewhere. Zack is convinced that to save them, he'll take his party to hunt down Sephiroth in their stead. And then the next part, I think, will be a main party is going to recover and join up with Cloud and Aerith and attempt to go after Sephiroth in the City of the Ancients again. They'll manage to get ahead of the side party of Zack and his crew and activate Holy without losing Aerith this time. This point is where things are going to start to change a little more significantly. You're going to see the main party be prepared for what's going to happen there, and being free to act differently will lead to Cloud or Tifa being killed and removed from the story at this point. My money is on Tifa being gravely injured, but if it's Cloud, it's going to be Cloud being physically removed or kidnapped from the party, either via Sephiroth, Jenova, Genesis, Weiss, etc., or just chucked into the life stream again. I think this will lead directly to Zack picking up the Buster Sword again as it's knocked from Cloud's hand, and taking Cloud's place in the party for a while. Probably the final battle in this game, and reuniting the two parties for the combined events that'll happen in Reunion forwards. Now to hedge my bets. For the stuff I can see going the other way, mainly regarding the story diverging at the point where the main party walks through the portal and splits into an alternate timeline, as most people believe. I don't disagree that the new actions and story constitute a new timeline, but I disagree in general that we're going to have two separate worlds and two separate outcomes that either become different or coalesce at some point. Namely, a timeline where Zack dies and a timeline where Zack doesn't, where the Whispers are still active or where they're not. Having two worlds with different choices and actions, but both having no Whispers active would be really stupid to me. With that being said, here are some counter predictions I can foresee to some of mine. So starting from the point when Cloud and his party step through the portal and end up in a parallel world, and in doing so have somehow made their counterparts in that world comatose. Tifa, Barrett, Cloud, Red, and Aerith are all either dead or not doing well in parts of the Rebirth trailer, or this is a parallel world where they failed to defeat the Whispers properly. My honest thought here is that the tornado from fighting the Whispers and the subsequent explosion had an effect on the real world, and that the images of Cloud and party being all knocked out is just propaganda from Shinra. But I know a lot of the people that believe the timeline theory believe it's something along the lines of they didn't defeat the Whispers, but they were injured in the process or something. Feels sloppy to me. The one thing I would love if there was a split like this, where there's two actual timelines going on and there's two Buster Swords, two Clouds, etc., because of the timeline split and merging. If they do merge back up, the only thing I really want to see them do is I want to see them Xstrike Sephiroth, like just like Chrono Trigger with two Buster Swords. Cut him right in half at the waist. That would be the thing I'm most excited for if the timeline theory is true. Jesse, Biggs, and Wedge die in the original or remake timeline, but not the new timeline. I don't think this works based on the actions of the Whispers, but whatever. Specifically because in the remake one, they're shown to die because of the Whispers' actions. So I think they're alive 100%. The prediction that Tifa will die instead of Cloud and require them to dive into the life stream, either like she's knocked in the life stream and Cloud dives in after her, they piece his mind back together, much the same way that I was predicting Aerith and Cloud would fall into the life stream to heal him. It could happen, but I just feel like Aerith is going to be the star of this new loop and this new set of stuff in it. Tifa got her accolades in the original one a lot. You get to control the party as her, you get to heal Cloud as her, you get to hang out with Cloud and save him when the deal gets exploded, basically. Aerith needs some more stuff. She missed out on everything after she got separated from the party. She needs more things in this loop, so I think it's going to be Aerith that heals Cloud this time. And the 7 seconds to the end, enough time for you perhaps, is Sephiroth's quote to Cloud. Meaning, this is a prediction I saw a lot, which was a weird one I thought. was people thought that was how much time Cloud would have to go back and change things. And I vehemently disagree with this. Personally, I think it's really dumb. I don't think it's any reference to anything more than the initial time that Cloud or Sephiroth takes to stab and kill Aerith, and he's just saying it to mess with Cloud and make him focus on saving her to prevent activating Holy and acting within the life stream. Specifically, I think he's trying to plant seeds in Cloud's mind so that when they get to the temple or the city of the ancients, he is going to save Aerith this time and give Sephiroth that chance to actually win. Basically, that's what Sephiroth's trying to do. Screwing with Cloud, basically. I don't think it has anything to do with like going back in time to change things like the Flash from the movie. Not worth it. Another one I saw pretty often was that Zack is going to die in place of Aerith. I think that's actually fairly possible. I just don't think it's very cool, and I don't think it serves the story in a significant way. Because Zack won't be able to affect things from the life stream that much, and Zack doesn't need to die to stop Aerith being stabbed there. And I'm of the thought that Sephiroth's larger plan involves not killing Aerith this time to succeed. Okay, so there are some other predictions I've seen, but I either found them so unbelievable, or they didn't add to the story in any significant way, or they were just to like enhance somebody's personal headcanon or their favorite character, their favorite story and stuff. Even though some of mine do that too, but I didn't see anything that was significant enough to change my mind or feel like I had to dispute it here. So I'll just say thanks to some of the people that I got to discuss this with on my stream, like Toxin, Ocean, Chimera, Elton, and a lot of other people that honestly came in all the time and had nice little conversations with me about their favorite parts or my favorite parts. And I'll end this here. So there's a lot there. And this was almost made specifically because of those viewers I was talking about, where I have long discussions and nice 2-hour long distractions in the middle of my playthrough. But please feel free to call me out on these bets. Once Rebirth's out and once you've seen me post my playthrough, then reply and tell me what I was wrong about or what you were right about or something, or comment on this and tell me there. But you could always come into the stream too while I'm playing Rebirth and ask me how right or wrong I was. I'm not going to be upset if I'm wrong, as long as they do it better than I was expecting. Like if they do it exactly how I predicted and I'm right, I'm going to be pretty happy about that because I was right. But I would love it to be better than my amateur writing skills. I mean, I'm really stoked to see how it plays out. I really miss Zack. He's a cool guy. He's my favorite character. But yeah, stay safe, stay healthy, stay sane. Click like, subscribe, and all that, and watch me on Twitch or follow my VODs here from streams, and maybe I'll post more of these videos if it's good. Thank you. Goodbye for real. Long time to record. Okay, see you guys. Bye.
Me? GONGAHGUH.
At least someone's keeping up. Me? GONGAHGUH.